Douglas Brenner Shocks here in Southern California. I'm authorized Ohlins sales and service for both automotive and motorcycle. I think I'm the only one in the country authorized to do that, and I'm exclusively Ohlins. I don't work on anything else. I'm a shock tech, not a guru. I've done this for over 30 years, and also I know it's hard to believe because I am so young and handsome. I've been racing for over 50 years and doing shocks and putting them in my car and seeing in competitive on-track situations what I've done. I'm not sitting on the internet or just on YouTube. I call them on the internet jabberwankers, telling you what to do when they have no real experience with actual racing or with real competitive drivers. So be careful. I also know I'm not going to be an internet sensation, so I make my money selling and servicing Ohlins products. So give me a call if you need service or sales. You might as well buy it from somebody who actually knows inside and out the product and not a internet reseller. I'm as close as UPS, FedEx, etc. If you need service or bring them over. I'm in Southern California. I'm available 7 days a week to serve your needs. So give me a call if you need something, and I can compete with any price on Ohlins products. Any legitimate price you have, I can do the same or better, and you might as well buy it from somebody who knows the product. So let's see what we have this week. Okay, we've got a shock here off a 1994 Ducati 916. 26 years old as of when I'm making this video. Nice little shock, dandy little shock, just as good as any single tube shock Ohlins has. You can get every part for it, except maybe this casting. You probably can't get this casting. So if you've broken that, it's probably time to get a new shock anyway. But if you've been riding this motorcycle since 1994, or even if it's been sitting, you've probably gone through a couple of whatever the OEM that wasn't Ohlins shock on there. So you got to buy a new shock every time, and it's a crap shock anyway. The beauty of Ohlins is we can service this shock. It'll be as good as new and as up to date as pretty much any Ohlins S46 shock. So let's get started. We'll take it apart. I'm going to kind of show how you would do it if you were at home in your home shop, that you could do it, and then explain how I do it. But certainly it would be serviceable. Any of these shocks are serviceable at home. Okay, the first thing we want to do is get these little spacers out. So put it in your soft jaws, tighten it up. Don't try to take it out with a screwdriver, it won't work. There's a little space in between the two, they don't meet, so you get yourself a punch. Pop it out. There goes the little seal that's in there. Turn it around. Tighten it up, and I use a little aluminum punch for this side. Done. And if there's any spacer, this little spacer left in there, just pop it out. Also, I've put these in backwards in that some shocks, this looks like it's the same spacers top and bottom, but some don't. And I've delivered them with the wrong one, so now I just mark them. Also, there's little dents from the punch. Doesn't hurt anything, just run a drill, I think it's 12 millimeter drill or ream or a file. But this is the official Brenner Shocks theohlinsguy way to do it, and I think it's the official Ohlins way to do it too. But that's how I do it. Do it any way you want, but if you try to pry it out with a screwdriver, I've never got that to work. So I put this little tag, and I know that's the shaft side. And just go over here, same deal. Put it in your soft jaws. Put your punch. Punch-a-rooney. One down. Turn it over. And you can see here the seal's in there. Just kind of pop it out. Tighten her down good. Grab the little aluminum punch and pop it out. Done. All right, we'll go on to our next little adventure. Alrighty, the next thing we want to do is we want to take out the nitrogen from the canister. So this one, this older shock, it has that has a Phillips set in it, but the newer ones have a different kind of screw. Also, you want to put a little Ohlins. Too much is just enough grease. This is a cutoff. I had an older little line to my gas filler. I just cut it off so I can let oil out. Then there's a couple things you can do, but I like to, let's see what that is. I like to kind of open up where the vacuum fill is. Somebody put it on real tight. These over tightens. There we go. Even if you're not, I'm going to show you how to do this without the vacuum filler, but even then, you might want to do this just to get some of the oil out. Just push it a few times, we'll get it out. Alright, that kind of helps a little bit. Okay, then what you want to do is, what you really want is to take off this little bumper so we can pull this thing up a bit. You can see it's been leaking for a while, the shock. Alright, and you can see these little indentations. That's kind of how you got to get these out. Just be careful and stay in the little thingy there, the little indentation. Sorry for my back. Let's see, we'll get it here. There we go. That's done. Okay, then you can push this down. Especially with this, I have a special little tool, but you can see it's going down nicely without it. And there's a circlip, a flat circlip in there. And you want to get that out. I have this little tool that's blunted and has a little indentation in it. It really makes it easy. Try not to scratch up the inside. And sometimes it's kind of hard to get in there and get it. There we go. Nope. I'll push it down a little more. The more you can pull the, oh, look at that. Now we're talking. Okay. There we go. There's your little flat circlip. I got it stuck up in there. There it is, see? Now, what we can do is, we can pull this baby out. Hopefully, there we go. Not too much agony. And there we are. So put this here, and I usually just turn this over and let it drain a bit. There we go. You'll be full of oil if you're doing this yourself. Just get used to it. Okay, let's continue on. I've got a little better camera angle because I don't think pictures of my back are very informative. So now let's get the canister apart. Get your little tool, pop it in here. And of course our oil's down, and also open this up, open your so-called compression damping adjuster up, which will help later on too. And just give it a push If you can't do it, just give it a whack. There we go. Push it up. Take the circlip out. Come on, baby. Usually I can do it with my finger, but there we go. Just got to do it in the right place. Pop this off. There we go. This aside. Get our little tool here, and there's threads in the separator piston that coincide with this. This is also what we use to set the piston depth when we've got a when we vacuum bleed it. When we hand bleed it, you don't. Well, I'll show you. Okay, sometimes these are in real good. Whoop, there it is. Yeah, it's kind of stuck in there. There's your separator piston. Okay, so let's do a little reaming of this one. I'll get right back to you. Okay, we're back again. This shock, I can see somebody's done a little reaming. Actually, whoever had it has taken pretty good care of it. I can see it's been refreshed, or at least worked on before. You'd think after 26 years it probably would. So I'm going to just give it a little brush up here. I don't do it on aluminum bodies because aluminum bodies have anodizing, and usually they're always good. I almost never see any problem, but if I do, I'll just replace the tube. They're not all that expensive, and it's the correct way to do it, because if you start honing the aluminum, you get the anodizing off. I mean, I know it's done, but I'm not going to do it. So I have a little actual honing oil I had, but I think any oil will do. I think it might be overkill. And then you got this little, I don't know what you call it, but if you're doing it yourself, you know, I don't know that honing is absolutely necessary. I do it because I'm a highly trained professional, but and also, you know, if you can get one of those little hones that you do cylinders with, you can get in the auto parts store, you know, with the 3 little things, that would work too. But let's just do it anyway, and let's see. Give it a little crosshatch. That's all we need. I don't want to overdo it. And don't hone. This is aluminum. Don't be honing in here. All right, I'm going to pop this in the my little parts washer thingy, and we'll clean it up, and we'll go on to messing with the shaft. Okay, now let's take the shaft and all the piston off and get this thing ready to service. Take your 17 millimeter. You can put the end eye in a regular old vise if you want. Sometimes it'll start to spin. You'll have to grab it here with some soft jaws, but we'll see how. Okay, not too tight. Perfect. You don't want to over tighten anything. Take that off. Then I have my patented Brenner Shocks tool, piston and shim removal tool. I just put it on a bolt, and that way I keep it in order. And this is a sheet on this particular shock. It'll show what shims were on it when it was delivered, and you know, we could see if somebody's changed it. But anyway, so now we need to take this off. This is the bleed, and this is one of the fancy ones that have kind of a bleed both ways. Let's see if I can see. They don't mark them, but it's a pretty small hole. It's almost closed, and it looks like a 3 millimeter open bleed. So there's a lot of bleed. I kind of am thinking I know what this is going to look like. Now there's this stupid little circle. They do it different now. It was difficult here. So this is a little part that bottoms against the seal head, or tops out, I guess. Some of the later ones have top out springs and everything, but this didn't. So let's see if we can get this thing off with my another patented tool. There we are. Now, here lies the rub. This is the hardest thing in the world to get off, this little snap ring. So probably I'm going to shut things down and get it off so you don't have to watch me fumble. But it's really a bummer. The newer ones, if they have something like this, it's a snap ring with the little holes, and you can just use snap ring pliers. And I have some that are supposed to separate it over there, a separator pliers, but it doesn't seem to work real well. So, okay, I got that snap ring off. Hour later, it's off. Then you got to pop this off. It's kind of tight on there. And here's your inside spacer to shorten the throw a little bit. I rarely see blue ones. Usually the red ones are 3mm. So this is 3mm inside spacer. They have blue ones that are 10mm. But so this is early because they're using a different color. You pop off the seal head. Make sure everything's nice. There we go. And we'll clean this up a little here. There's your seal head here. Oops. And take off the bumper and take off the bump stop. Never understand why they do it this way. I always put it the other way. I don't think it makes any difference. But this size here is about the same as that, and this side is about the same as that. You can see it. But for some reason, they always put them this way. But I don't, so sue me. I'll put it back the way I want to put it on. So what we'll do is we're going to take this over to the drill press and clean it up. Make sure everything's nice. And I'll show you what to do if you're doing it at home. I have little bullets that go over here when I put the seal head on, but you wouldn't have that tool, so I'll show you how to make it easier not to nick the seal once you get it in. So alright, let's go over to the drill press. Okay, get your shaft, chuck it up in the drill press. Get some Scotch-Brite, turn it on, and just do this. You can do it with light sandpaper, but I kind of like doing this. Just get the shine off of it. Then it's a little sharp here, and if you don't have like the little bullet or thimble I put over, that could nick the seal. So I take a little file and I just round it off a little. Just get the sharpness off. And that way you don't risk doing the seal. And that's about all there is to it. Okay, now we want to disassemble the seal head so we can refresh it, put new parts in it. You can buy the seal heads all ready to go with all the O-rings and seals and scraper and everything, and they're not all that expensive, but I like to do it myself. I stock all the parts, and like some of them, like this one has this little bumper sticking out. Some of them have the bumper sticking in. They're all a little different. So if I have the parts just to rebuild it, I don't have to worry about ordering the very same seal head. And also they might not have it in stock, or they might not make it anymore. So that's why I do it. So the first thing is to take off this scraper. Sometimes it's really hard. I had one where some genius glued it on. It's awful. But oh look, that one's coming up good. So it's just pressed on, and you kind of just work it around. It'll eventually just pop off. All right, there we go. All right, now let's take, there's three things in here. There's the bushing, and there's the X-ring. Ohlins uses X-rings. A lot of these so-called professional shocks use O-rings. I don't know. I'm sure Ohlins knows what they're doing, but they're a little probably more delicate. Probably an O-ring, might seal in some situations. This won't, but I'm sure it has to do with friction and everything. So a long time ago, these X-rings, I got some on McMaster cars, same material, same size, everything. And I put it on this car, all 4 shocks. That was going to the SCCA, Sports Car Club of America runoffs, big deal. Every one of them, he got there, every one of them leaked. So I talked to Ohlins. They said, well, even though it's the same material, they try a bunch of different manufacturers. And, it depends on the manufacturer when it leaks. So I guess the moral of the story, which I learned the hard way, is just buy the Ohlins seal. So this is a couple bucks instead of 2 cents. It's it'll pay in the long run. So anyway, this is an X-ring, so you just kind of gotta pop that out. There it is. One X-ring coming up. Ooh, there was something underneath there. Oh, that was ugly. Look at that. Maybe that's why it was leaking. Okay, then there's this Teflon, kind of a scraper, or it just holds the O-ring in place. They're real neat. So let's see if we can get that out without messing everything up. There it is. Pop it out. There's that. Okay, and if I don't have it, we can take this off too. This is usually good, but again, I'm a highly trained professional, so and it's, I don't know, 70 cents or something, so I don't have any agony if I change. And I got in trouble once. I used to just do the ones that I think that need replacing. And so somehow they took it to some other guy and you go, oh, this guy didn't put these O-rings on it, so I just do it. And that's a matter of course now. So let's go and replace press out this bushing and put a new one in and put the seals in and pop it together and get that ready to go. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in my washer and clean this all up. Okay, this is all out of the parts cleaner. The last part of disassembly would be taking out the bushing that's in here. So I have a little tool that I made, and if you see it, it's the OD's a little less than the bushing, and the ID fits in here. So what we need to do is take out this bushing, and the flats allow you to this top here is a little smaller than this, so you couldn't push the bushing in this way. So if you put the flats on, it allows you to get it up inside of there. And then I have this little ring because the rubber's proud of this, and then it kind of squishes. It kind of gets a little harder to get out the bushing, so I just put that in there. You make sure the bushing is square with the tool. Let's see, and then you just push out it pops. There's the old bushing. Your next step is to make sure this is good and clean. I have these little industrial Q-tips. I think they're I got a McMaster car, but they're really surgical Q-tips, and they have no lint. And you just want to make sure you get all down in there. When we took it apart, you noticed there's that white gook in there. That was oil. I mean, that was grease that somebody had just, whatever grease they had laying around, some sort of white grease. And it had congealed. It almost like, you put vinegar in in cream or something. And I think it had kind of got in the way of the seals, and maybe that's why it was leaking. Just use the Ohlins stuff. red grease. Red, too much is just enough grease. It's made for the job, and you'll avoid having problems. If you're doing this just to cheap out and to try to do something cheaply, don't do it. Just send it to me. You'll totally save money, but get the supplies that Ohlins says you need to use, which is red grease and Ohlins seals. Don't use, McMaster car seals, and you'll be fine. Ohlins, I know your local guru will say, oh yeah, I can put this oil in, and any grease will work. But they don't have almost 5 decades of race experience at the top levels of racing as Ohlins does. And they don't do anything just to do it or to sell something. So just use the correct stuff and you'll be all right. So now we've cleaned it up, so let's put the seals in. And you don't want to put the seals in from the top. A couple reasons. Even when the bushing's in, you want to put them in the bottom. I learned that. For some reason, it's easier to get them in. So don't worry about the top. Just pop it in there. And you kind of got to work it in. And then pop it in. I know it's hard to see in this thing, and then I have a little kind of a blunt I cleaned up, cut off a screwdriver, and you want to make sure it's up there, because otherwise the seal won't fit. Here's the X-ring. Put a little Ohlins, too much is just enough grease. Also, when you finally grease this up, even though it's too much is just enough, on this you don't want too much, because sometimes they'll leak. Sometimes they'll leak because they got too much grease, and they'll eventually stop leaking, but by then it might be too late. So now it's kind of, I don't know if you can see, but you got to kind of maneuver it under that white ring and pop it in there. Sorry, I know it's hard to see, but you'll get the gist of it. Up in there you go. Sometimes you get your little tool in there, and there, I got it part way in, and then you slide it in. There we go. And they're real easy to twist, these X-rings, so you got to really kind of look in there and make sure it's in, and it's under the white. You can see it there under this little Teflon seal. So the next thing you want to do is put in the bushing. These are chem wipes. They're also lint-free. Just clean it up there, because you want to make sure it gets in. And then there's another autograph model Brenner tool. I just took one of these shoulder bolts. It's 16 millimeter, and I cut off the threads and rounded it so it can go through the seal. It also helps set the seal. So you just put that on, pop it in there, get it. Get it in. All right. Beautiful. You can see it's nice. Then you want to put on this. I'll use my little ring because it makes it easier to press. And these are the press-on scraper. Just pop it on. I have another autograph model Ohlins tool, a little piece of tubing that fits on the outside so I don't squish anything there. And then just pop it on. Beautiful. Then we'll take our little O-ring here, put a little Ohlins, too much is just enough grease on it. Pop it over. All right, that's it. We're ready to go. Put a little oil in here, a little grease, sorry, in here. Ohlins, too much is just enough grease, but not too much. Okay, that should do it. Let's go on to assembling the shaft. Okay, let's assemble the shaft. First thing we want to do is there's a little needle valve in here, a little needle that coincides with the bleed valve, I guess you'd call it. But I want to take this out. So I have this nut that I use to bang on, and when they get too banged up, I get a new one. But this is my sacrificial nut. And you get a big old mallet and hold it and just let's see. There they go. Okay, this is the rod that goes down to the adjuster. And this rod, when you move the adjuster, it moves the needle up and down, and it'll either close off or open up this. But there's a little O-ring on here. And again, see, I learn all the time from doing it wrong. This isn't going to work. There we go. I never used to change those. Never used to change this little thing. So one time I delivered a shock. There, it's kind of hard to get off sometimes. I don't want to move the camera. I usually put it in my little vise and stuff, but I don't want to do that. There we go. All right. So I never used to change it. I used to leave it in because it's pretty much a static seal. I mean, this moves up and down in the shaft, not much, and usually people just leave it there. And what this O-ring does is it keeps the oil and the pressure from coming out of here, because this is kind of open. There's a hollow, you know, this shaft's hollow, and then this is the adjuster that pushes. When you turn this, it has a little rod that pushes this rod up and down, and also make sure this is kind of open. So I did it, you know, I sent it back. Things were leaking out of the top because this seal failed. Again, it's like a 70-cent seal. So, so here I have a new one. Get some Ohlins. Too much is just enough grease. Pop it on. It's kind of hard. I usually have to hold it, and this vise isn't closing all the way for some reason. I guess that's as far as it goes because it's meant for another purpose. But let's see if I can get it to hold long enough to pop this on. Come on, baby. Come on. There we go. All right. And then there's another little thing there. A little. You can see it's kind of difficult. There we are. All right, so now we've got a new seal on here, and we'll clean up the shaft, make sure it's nice and clean here. Sorry for make sure the shaft's good and clean. And then do a little squirt inside. Usually it stays clean, especially if it's been sealed pretty much. Okay. Then we'll take this baby off. We'll put a little Ohlins. Too much is just enough grease on that. Just a little bit. Pop it in there. Then we'll put a little grease on this. Make sure this is good and greased. Pop it in there. And then you can use anything. I have these pieces of aluminum rod, but you won't mar it up if it's steel if you're careful. And as long as you got to have this open as far as you can. Push it there, it's in place, and then you want to look in here, make sure you can see daylight through there, because if you're hand bleeding or if you're vacuum bleeding it, you want this circuit open. Okay, then we'll get a little blue Loctite. I use this stick, seems to work good because I can get just a little bit of the blue Loctite on there. Pop this in. Alright, don't over tighten, just snug it up. There it is. Okay, let's assemble this. We'll first put on the bump rubber. I put it on upside down from everybody, but I like it that way. Here's the little stop that presses into the shock body. Okay, now we're going to put on the seal head, and it's really hard on these. This little thing stops everything, and so you want to get it kind of greasy. This the scraper goes the wrong way, you know, to go over this. The taper's the wrong way, so it's hard to get it over, and then it sticks here, so you just got to kind of work with it. Look at that, just like the real guys. Then just really have to kind of work to get it over there. Right now that it's over, you just be careful because you don't want to mess up that seal. Felt all right. There we are. Okay, then we put our little inside spacer. The newer spacers, well, this is big. Well, it's not. The newer spacers have little indentations. Let's see if I can find one for you. Don't go away. Okay, I got one. You can see on the newer spacer, see how it's kind of triangular shaped? That allows, if it's obstructing where the bleed hole is, that allows oil to get out. They have little indentations here. On this older one, which is pretty interesting, and that's probably why they put this particular spacer on, the bleed hole is above this spacer. On all the other ones, the bleed hole is below this first thick washer there, so that when it's all the way kind of out, and you have this on, or a stack of these, it can bleed. So they've figured out they don't need to separate the bleed and make all this agony, I think. So there's that. Okay, next we'll start stacking stuff. First thing is this big thick washer, and it has a little, usually has a little chamfer, and you put the chamfer down. But and this is what we would do, see. But now what we have to do is we have to put this baby on first. And we got to get it past the snap ring hole. And then we have this big old ugly snap ring we got to find some way to get on. And it's really hard. I have these pliers that are supposed to work. Supposed to is the key word. But you can see, and I even filed one of them down. I got another one. That really doesn't, there. No. Try again. First you not suck, try again. There we go. I think that's going to do it. Hopefully. And we'll just working my way back to you, babe. Oh, where did we do it, Dan? I'll get one of my little blunt tools and the mallet and give it a little whack. There we are. Okay. And you can see it's stretched out a little. We got to kind of try to get it to unstretch a little. And eventually this will come up inside and kind of hold it in. But, you know, in the later models you won't have to deal with all this agony. Okay. All right. That should do it. As soon as it hits, it'll come in. You know, as soon as we get it gets a kabwap. And I don't know if it matters if it floats on this a little, but it's just really bad, really hard to do. All right, so then we put on this as a chamfer, put the chamfer down. This is what you'll see. You won't see any of this usually. You won't see any of this in the newer ones. You'll just have that. And then here's our little shim stackeroony. Get a little chem wipe and make sure they're all clean as I put them on. And we'll stack them all on. Clean and stack. And I'll see, you know, usually they're not damaged. I hardly ever change a shim. Some people do. I'll probably get crap for that. Some will say, oh, he didn't put new shims in. And, well, I don't think you need to do it. So there you go. Okay. Real quick so I don't have to bore you with all this shim stacking stuff. Alrighty. Okay, I'll give it a little, make sure it's all good. Alright, then I'm going to take the piston, and I'm not going to move the camera, but I have a little whetstone, and I'm just going to, with a little, I don't know what it is, 600 sandpaper, maybe it's 180, I don't know, a little rough, and rough this up. And I had a guy, I was watching somebody's YouTube channel, and I usually scratch them up so that they don't stick, but nowadays it's not going to stick anywhere here. But he had a really good point. He says it also flattens it out a little if you do it. So see, I learn something every day. So I'll do it real quick. All right, that's done. We'll clean it off. And we're going to put on a new piston ring. So let's grab this. Just pop it off. Alright, we'll clean up here, make sure everything's good. Here's the new ring, the metallic ring. I showed them on, I think on my piston video or something, I showed about these rings. Alright, there it is. Now always, well, most always, you can tell this is the compression side because the ports are bigger. So that side down. Same thing over here. We'll just clean off. I can do this one too to make sure that all these are clean. A little faster than chem wiping everything, and they're all nice. Stack away. I don't know if this is the stock. It's almost looking like it's not. There's way too many shims. So somebody's revalved this. Probably not for the better, I would think, because it looks like they want to put out a lot of damping. And then a couple of these just you want to put on here, which is kind of weird. Usually there's a thick washer here. So these don't look like the diameter of the clamping shim, and I can't see anything else here. So somebody has revalved this and decided not to put that on. So now these become the diameter of the clamping shim, which works, but it's not the way it's supposed to happen. There'll be a thick washer, and I'm going to put a link to a couple of my videos because I don't want you to have to go through everything here again. But then just tighten it up. Okay, so that's all ready to go. Then we'll get the body. And I'm going to link one of my videos to show you how to hand bleed. If you were hand bleeding, you wouldn't do this next step, but we're not hand bleeding. So, pop this bit. You put a little too much is just enough grease on here. Pop her in. There we go. Put a little grease here on the seal head. And push it in. Push it past that snap ring. Here's the snap ring. Just make sure when you get it in there. But you know, you'll put this in last if you're hand bleeding. And these are perfectly okay to hand bleed. It works actually pretty well. Then I have a little soft hammer. I'll pop that in. Then what we want to do is take off the seals here on the separator piston. Okay, and I'll have to duck under the camera to get my seals in stockaroonie. One of these. And I think one of these ought to do it. Make sure that's the one. Nope, it might be the 13. Hold on. Let's see which one it is. Nope, I had the right one to begin with. All right, so just grease it up. Grease this baby up. Make sure it's all good and clean. Make sure you got some grease on there. Pop the O-ring on. All right, and then here's the new Teflon seal. I like to put a little grease on it. I think it's Teflon. I don't know what it is. Okay. And we'll get our installer and we'll pop this on. Now this is where you want too much is just enough. Really grease it up pretty good here on these. I like to grease it up pretty good. And then you just kind of, this is a little difficult because you gotta, sometimes this O-ring gets misaligned and stuff, so you got to make sure you got it in there correctly. And there we are. And then when I vacuum bleed it, which I'll link a video where I vacuum bleed, but basically there's a certain distance that you want this to live out away from here. When you hand bleed it, when you push this together, it automatically does enough, you know. Then as the shaft goes in, it goes even more. So I would set this distance. I have little marks here depending on what tube it is, and put the circlip in, and then when I vacuum it, it sucks in, and when I put oil in, this will come up and stop on the snap ring, and when it's done, I can undo this, pop out the ring, and I'm done. But I'll link the other videos, even though it's a little different kind of a shock. I think one is my Franken shock, and it has the separator piston here, but it's the same as this where it can't come out where you pressurize it. So do the same things. So thanks. I hope that was a little informative and not too redundant. 26-year-old shock. It's good as new. I'll stick it on the dyno as soon as I get done vacuum filling it. I'll pop it on the dyno, make sure it's working, make sure it's not leaking because I run the dyno for a while, and we're done. So thanks again. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you during the next video if you're going to watch. Thanks. Bye.